So I've got a question for you. Which MBTI types do you think are the most sensitive? Do you think it's intuitive feelers, NFs, or do you think it's sensor perceivers, SPs? I think people would probably say NFs are the most sensitive. So which ones do you think are the most sensitive? Intuitive thinkers or sensor judgers? That's a toss up. I think people might say that SJs are more sensitive because there are a couple of feeling types. Loaded question. Which one do you think is most sensitive? Feelers or thinkers? Sometimes I like to say what everybody's really thinking instead of being politically correct. So, who's the most sensitive? Men or women? Who does our society automatically go to? Is it ironic that approximately 75% of women are feelers and 75% of thinkers are men? If you have an ISTJ female versus an ISTJ male, do you think that changes the type? My honest answer? I think it does a little bit. Of course, there's always exceptions to everything. I think there are a lot of factors that come into play in someone's personality. I guess I was raised in kind of an unusual way in the sense that all four Myers Briggs temperaments were in my house and all the females were thinkers. I was the only feeler in the house, so I definitely think that there were probably some thinker influences on me. To be honest, I've never really thought about that until now. The only thing is, I don't feel comfortable crying publicly, even in situations where it's deemed socially acceptable. I just can't do it. I rarely saw my thinker mom cry, like almost never. Nowadays, is that a word? Nowadays, it seems like parents get a lot more emotional if they think somebody's doing something to my kid or somebody's picking on my kid or they're bullying. I remember having some issues with kids at school, but my parents stayed out of it. They were objective about it. You guys are 8, you guys are 11, work it out. I remember a mother waiting up at the school and she confronted every parent that came up to pick their kid. And when she got to my mom, everybody else's mom said, "Okay, I'll talk to them when they get home." But when she got to my mom said, "They're children, they're third graders. Let them handle it. Let them work out some of the differences." So she didn't get all involved and wrapped up in all of our little kitty emotional, we're mad at each other kind of stuff. And I'm really grateful for that. So grateful because she didn't fall apart with me. Like, she didn't crawl into the emotions with me. She would just be a great listener. And so once the argument was over, then I moved on from it. I guess that's what I learned from that. Now, if I fell and got hurt or something like that, my mom would hug me and comfort me. And even if I felt sad about something, she would hug me or, be very comforting. But I remember falling off of the seesaw with my dad at the park, and all the little kids were all gathered around me, and I'm screaming. He just walked me back to the car, and he got some tissue and put it on my knee, and he was like, "You're all right." And he's an ISTP. "You're going to be okay." Kind of dryly, but I kind of knew, even as a little kid, that I just felt like, well, he's doing the best he can. He doesn't know what to do. He just wasn't going to be super mushy about it. And yet, as a thinker, he's one of the nicest people that I know. But he's just not emotional, but very kind and very polite. So let's talk about sensitivity. What if I told you that sensitivity has nothing to do with thinking, feeling, NFs versus SJs, none of that? Well, actually, I think that would be a false statement. I think that sensitivity can be linked to that. But what about overly sensitive? So I'm going to show you a little trick. Look at this handwriting sample. You see a big looped D or a big looped T. That is a sign or a tangible sign of sensitivity. So you can look at that in someone's handwriting. If it's a really little small loop, then that means that the person is going to be sensitive to other people. It just shows some compassion and that they may be a little sensitive. So the bigger the loop, the more sensitivity. And if you get a really big giant D loop or a big giant T loop, that means that the person may even have some paranoia. So the bigger the loop, the more sensitive. We're talking sensitivity to criticism. I think because I had objective parents, it really helped me to take feedback and critiques better than I would have, because I played the piano for many years, played classical piano, went to an arts high school, and they would criticize and critique you all the time, and I could take it. I never took it personally. I mean, it was an objective thing. So it's sometimes critiques can help you to become better at something. So the larger the loop, the greater the sensitivity and vulnerability. So sensitivity to criticism is a subconscious fear of disapproval and rejection. And it's one of the most common unconscious fears that you can find. In childhood, everybody gets approval and you get disapproval from others. So a more sensitive child develops a heightened sense to anything that sounds, looks, or feels like criticism. Abusive criticism from a caretaker causes excessive sensitivity to develop. Sometimes sensitive people will be more attuned to your tone of voice, a shrug, a laugh, a glance, or any behavior that they interpret as insulting. It's the imagination is being activated. So the bigger the D loop is, the more likely the person is to distort their perception of the experiences that they have, and the more likely they will feel criticized, offended, even when no criticism was intended. Sensitivity to criticism also helps a person to be more compassionate towards others. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. One is good and one is not so good. The person just doesn't want to have their feelings hurt. And so they're going to be more cautious in not hurting someone else's feelings. Now, some experts consider a very large D loop to be a hell trait, because there's going to be an area that person is very, very difficult to deal with, because for some reason the information goes into their brain and then they reinterpret it a completely different way. So you could say something and mean one thing, and they're going to filter it as another. And no matter how you try to convince that person, look, that's not what I meant. I was not trying to be hurtful to you. It can be really, really tough dealing with somebody with that trait, especially if they have a lot of big D loops in their handwriting. I've seen people with this type of handwriting to develop a sharp sarcasm that they use like a sword. So some of them can be very biting. Others of them may not be biting, but they may not trust you after that. And they may take something that you said where you were meaning good and change it into something entirely different. So the person's feelings can be easily hurt. Now, like I said, if it's a small, thin loop, then yeah, it might equate it to hurt feelings, but it's not gonna turn into I'm imagining things that aren't true. So in this sense, it doesn't matter whether the person is a feeler or a thinker. I've seen plenty of thinkers with this trait in their handwriting. Now, where you might see some differences is an extrovert might lash out or be more prone to lash out in some type of way, whereas an introvert might withdraw or drop you, but that's not foolproof because I think there are some extroverts who will drop people and there are some extroverts who can pull back, and there are also some introverts who can become quite confrontational. But I think more than likely that extrovert introvert trait is gonna show itself in the way that is natural to that person's personality type. So, are some Myers Briggs personality types more prone to sensitivity to criticism? Yes, I would say that would be a yes, but it's really not the thing that creates it. Repeated hurts, whether they're imagined or real, may have caused the person to become really alert and sensitive to criticism. The bigger the loop, the more suspicious the person may be to those that are around them, thinking that they have intentions of hurting them in some way. So, feeling like people are going to hurt you, it's going to make you feel rejected and hurt a lot of times. So, their overactive imagination and fear of criticism and rejection can cause them to distort some of what they see and hear. So sometimes I like to go a lot deeper into the Myers Briggs personality type because I find it personally helpful, and I feel like, well, maybe it will be helpful to other people too. So take a look at your handwriting today, and this could tell you something more about you or someone that you really care about so that you can start making some changes if necessary so that you can live a healthier, happier life and be more aware. So if you think this video would be helpful to some people, then hit the thumbs up button. Remember to subscribe. And thanks for watching my video on Tams PsychAdvice. See you next time. Bye.